Alright folks, we have some pretty interesting and important news from Estonia. Our government is on the brink of collapse because of the UN Global Compact on Migration. This global so-called Compact on Migration is a very interesting document that is being pushed by the UN, and the idea is to, as I understand, accept it in December in Marrakesh, which is in Morocco. The problem with this compact is that nobody really knows what kind of a document this is in a legal sense. So the proponents of this document say that it is totally non-binding, it's not really a treaty, it's sort of a framework for how everybody should approach the question of migration. The detractors, on the other hand, say that it is essentially a binding or semi-binding contract that will inevitably form sort of the common law basis of migration law in the world. Our government did not reach a agreement, or they agreed to not support it, essentially, and a total hysterical sort of media blitz ensued from this, because the proponents immediately started evoking like info operations rhetoric. So essentially, they did the good old Putin is behind this thing, and they started to construct these wild theories that the failure of this agreement to be reached in government is the result of a massive info operation by, nefarious unnamed sources, that somehow this there's been this avalanche of false information about this compact that has sort of been promulgated through various channels and has clouded the minds of the government ministers. So the people who were against this compact in the government is the so-called Fatherland party, which sounds really uber Nazi, but really isn't. It's just a conservative party, and I think they very correctly opposed ratifying this thing, although a bit sort of opportunistically, because their ratings are very low, even below 5%, I think, and we have government elections coming up in March, so they need to show that they are real patriots of Europe and against migration and whatever. But okay, you can say this is opportunism. But the other side, the Social Democrats, totally lost their minds. They went insane. Jevgeni Ossinovski, who I've talked about in the previous video, sort of announced that this minister, who is from the Fatherland party, must resign. And even more, that the prime minister, who is from the Center party, must relieve him of his duties. So a party demands that another party relieve the minister of a third party, sort of an ultimatum. And of course, this is a crisis, because Ossinovski is the leader of the Social Democrats, and you can say for sure that this government is no longer functional. And we still have like December, January, February, and then in March there are elections. So who knows what will happen? We will probably have a sort of minority government. But my main point is that I read this UN Global Compact. Actually, I read pretty fast. I read it in like half an hour, and it's a sort of vague document, but with some very weird and unsettling specifics. So, for instance, in the latter part of the document, they speak about the need to sort of affect public perception as concerns migrants. and work in cooperation with the media, and they actually say that if some media outlets spread hate or whatever, they should be defunded by the government. And of course they make all these suggestions, and then they end with, but of course not infringing on media freedom in any way. So yeah, they're really planning to infringe on media freedom and to shape a narrative that they consider to be fact checked. I guess if Snopes or PolitiFact fact checks it, then it's true. And interestingly enough, the word illegal not once appears in this document. So illegal immigration has been sort of like washed out of it. And what they use instead is irregular immigration. And they contrast this to regular migration. Now this is interesting because, as you know, the word regular has several meanings in the English language. It can mean like by the book, by the laws, or it can also mean constant. You see, so I don't think this is a sort of mishap that this word was used. I think they want to enforce the perspective that the UN does, that migration is happening all the time, will continue to happen all the time, and if you talk about distinctions like people fleeing from legitimate like wars, and contrast this to people just opportunistically looking for welfare from a richer country. It's newspeak. If you remove these words, then you can't think about it even anymore. So I salute the fact that this shittily written sort of newspeaky treaty or whatever it is was not ratified, or whatever you do with this sort of thing, agreed upon. And at the very least, we need a parliamentary debate, which has actually been brought up even by parliamentarians, even by a die-hard sort of Euro fan called Marco Michelsen, who usually takes the most extremely globalist line possible. But even he has sort of agreed that we should have a debate, because this migration issue obviously excites the passions of the electorate. But the real culprit here is our hapless foreign minister Sven Mikser, who is a I'm sorry, I said Mikkelsen is the most passionate Euro fan. Mikser is like the uber Eurocrat. He's like the sort of person who unquestioningly accepts anything that comes from up there, and the plebs here have no say in the matter. And the Mixer also just went a bit hysterical, and these people are like the Social Democrats and also like the various people who are in some way or form involved with the Euro institutions. They're talking about this like it's essentially like the 2016 elections redux or something, like the GRU or somebody is like manipulating our government ministers. Can you believe it? Not even manipulating the masses, but clouding the minds of very important people. So much hysterics about this, and we will see in the coming week if the government will actually fall. It probably will. I don't know, but just a huge shit show essentially. Okay, that's it. Thanks very much.